Welcome to the distance learning program on Android by Innobus. In this chapter, we will be covering Android menus and Android dialogs. We will see how to create menus, both programmatically and by inflating XML resources. We will also see how to create various different dialog boxes like alert dialog, confirmation dialog, and error reporting dialog. Now I will show you a demo of creating menus programmatically. First, we create an Android project and name the project. Select the build target and name the package. I open up the menu demo activity which was created by default. Every activity has an onCreate options menu and onOptions item selected method which needs to be overridden for creating menus. The onCreate options menu method needs to be selected, as well as the onOptions item selected method needs to be selected. We need to edit the method to add our menu items. Create a menu item object. Add it to the menu. Provide a name to the menu item. If required, an icon can also be added to the menu item. Similarly, multiple menu items can be added to the menu. Create a new menu item object. And name the menu item. Now let's run our application to check whether our menu items have been added to the menu correctly. I click on the menu button and the two menu items show up. We added an icon to the settings menu item and it is shown, whereas we didn't add any icons to the help menu item. Clicking on any of these menu items doesn't do anything as of now, as we haven't coded the logic for that. Now I will show you how to add the click listeners for the menu item. We need to override the onOptions item selected method to handle the click listeners on the menu items. But before that, let me add another activity so that we can check whether our click listeners work correctly. I create a new activity called as settings activity, and I make sure that the class extends the Android activity class. I create a text view and add it to the settings activity so that it will indicate us that we have moved on to the settings activity. I set a text value as settings activity. Now going back to our menu demo activity, we can add an intent to the menu item objects. Now to the settings menu item, I add an intent which calls the settings activity. And on the on options item selected method, we can retrieve the intent which we pass as a property to the menu item object. I call the start activity method of the activity class with the intent which we pass to the menu item. But before running our application, we need to make sure that we add the new activity which we created to the manifest file. Now having done that, we will run our application again to check whether the click listeners on the menu items work correctly. Now I click on the menu button and we can see the menu items that we have added, and I click on the settings menu item and it takes us to the settings activity. Similarly, the other menu item can also be mapped with an intent so that it takes us to the help activity. Now let's have a quick recap of how to create menu programmatically. We need to override the onCreateOptions menu method as well as the onOptions item selected method of the activity class. In the onCreateOptions menu method, we need to add the menu items that are required to the menu object. We can set icons to the menu item objects as well as intents to the menu item objects. In the onOptions item selected method, we can retrieve the intents that we passed as the property to the menu item objects and start new activities. Now I will show how to create menus by inflating XML resources. For this demo, we will reuse the same menu demo project which we used to create menus programmatically. I go to the resources folder of the project and create a new Android XML file. and I select the resource type as menu and name the file as menu underscore demo. I open the menu underscore demo file and I can add the required menu items to this XML file. Menu items can be added by adding item tags. Every item can have an ID, icon, and a title. Now, going to the menu demo activity, in the onCreate options menu method, I delete the code which we had for creating menu programmatically. We create a menu inflator object and using the menu inflator object we inflate the menu from the XML file. We mention the name of the menu that we created in the resources folder. This takes care of inflating the menu items from the XML file. And now on the onOptions item selected method, I delete the start activity method which I use it for creating menus programmatically. I create a switch case statement to filter the menu item. I get the item ID from the item object and I compare it with the different menu items that we created in the XML file. Now let's run the application to check whether the menu item objects have been created correctly. I click on the menu button. The two menu items show up. And I click on the settings menu item and it takes us to the settings activity. Now let's have a quick recap of how to create menus by inflating XML resources. First, we need to create an XML file with the menu items inside the menu tags. The item tags can have ID, icon and a title. Then in the menu demo activity on the onCreateOptions menu method, we inflate the menu items from the XML using a menu inflator object. And in the onOptionsItemSelected method, we filter the items using a switch case statement and perform the functions. Dialog. A dialog is usually a small window that appears in front of the current activity. When a dialog appears, the underlying activity loses the focus. All the user interaction is accepted by the dialog. Dialogs are normally used for notifications that should interrupt the user and to perform short tasks that directly relate to the application in progress. Now we will see a demo of creating alert dialogs. We create a new Android project and name it as Alert Dialog Demo. Select the target and name the package. I select the default activity which was created and edit the main layout file. I delete the text view which was present inside the main.xml file and add a button enter a ID to the button and a text to the button. And save the XML file. Going back to the alert dialog demo activity, I create a button object and map it with the button we mentioned in the XML file. I add a click listener to the button object and in the onClick function I write the necessary code required to show a alert dialog. Create an alert dialog constant in the class. and assign an integer value to the constant. Override the onCreateDialog method of the class to create the various dialogs. Create a dialog object inside the method and assign null to the object. Write a switch case statement to filter the different dialogs that we intend to create. The ID parameter of the method provides the dialog ID. Compare it with the various constants that we have created for the different dialogs. Create a new alertDialog.builder object. Builder. The builder object needs to be set with various properties. One of the properties is message, where we type in a text which is shown to the user when the alert dialog is shown to the user. We can also set whether the dialog box is cancelable or not. The builder objects can also have a positive button, and we can provide a text to the positive button. Here in this case I have typed OK and a on click listener for the button. And in the OK button, the on-click listener has been configured to dismiss the dialog box. Then the builder object is made to call the create method to create the dialog and is assigned to the dialog object that we have created initially. The new dialog which is created is returned. And back in the onCreate method, we call the showDialog method with the constant alert dialog. This implicitly creates the alert dialog box and calls the showDialog method. Now let's run the alert dialog demo project to check whether our alert dialog is shown correctly. Now I click on the show dialog button and the alert dialog is shown with the message. I press on the OK button and the dialog is dismissed. Now we will see how to create a confirmation dialog. First, we will create a constant for the confirmation dialog. And in the onCreate dialog method, we will create a new case block and configure the case block to detect the confirmation dialog constant. We can reuse the builder that we use in the above case block to create an alert dialog builder object. We will set a message for confirmation. And we will set the cancelable property. We will set the positive button action. We will write a new on-click listener for the positive button. And in the on-click method of the on-click listener, we will call the finish method of the activity. And we will create a negative button. We will create an on-click listener for the negative button. And we will call the dialog dismiss method. We call the create method on the builder object and assign it to the dialog object. We will call the show dialog method with the confirmation dialog constant. Now we will run the application to check whether the confirmation dialog is shown correctly. I click on the show dialog button and the confirmation dialog is shown with the two buttons. I click on the no button and the dialog is dismissed. but when I click on the Yes button, the application is closed. In the same way, an error dialog can also be shown. The only difference would be that instead of hardcoding the message can be obtained from the error or the exception. The alloc dialog is a useful tool to show various errors or exceptions appearing in the application to the end user.